I want to grow up. I want to be Vancouver Giants.
I'm a Giant.
Giants coverage lives here with Giancarlo Nadeau. This is your Giants coverage podcast.
Welcome, Giants fans, back to another episode of Giants coverage. I'm your host, Giancarlo Nadeau, and I'm delighted to be joined by the manager of corporate communications and media for the Langley Events Centre, Gary Ahuja. Gary, thank you so much for taking the time. How's everything going?
Everything's going great. Glad to be on the show, and congrats on launching the podcast.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me, and to have you on board always means a lot to me as well. So I really appreciate your time. Gary at the LEC. I want to know what Gary does at the LEC.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and whatever's needed to get done. Obviously, there's social media, there's writing, there's photography, and there's just general event coordination. It's usually all hands on deck with our team. When there's an event going on, you just pitch in where you can and put on a good show for the fans. That's what it's all about.
Now, obviously, it's not an easy job that you have. I'm sure you'd argue that it's a lot of fun, but it definitely is a big task. What got you into covering sports?
You know what? I just always loved sports, and like many people, I wasn't gifted enough to play at a high level. So once I was done university, trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life, and I'd always enjoyed newspapers and writing, and especially sports reporting. So I went to Langley College and got my journalism certificate and spent 16 years in newspapers, primarily covering sports.
Wow. So certainly lots of experience for you. You mentioned 16 years as a writer. What makes a good writer? Because there's a lot of people that say they can write, but only a few of them are really good writers.
You have to listen. That's the main thing. You can't go on with a preconceived notion of what you want to say. You actually have to listen to your subject interview, what they have to say, and then analyze that and convey it in a way that the audience or the reader is going to understand. It's really about sharing someone else's story. Like a lot of writers, they'll want their opinion in there, their bias in there, but that's not what makes a good reporter. That's, if you want to write an opinion piece, that's the place for it. But I always just enjoyed writing, especially about people. Everyone has a story, and I love sharing those stories. I love reading about those stories. To this day, I still read Sports Illustrated, something I've done since I was 15. I've had my weekly subscription because I just love the human interest pieces they do. That, you're going to get the standard cliche, we got to give 110%, win the board battles, get pucks deep. Sure, it's necessary, but I want to know who the people that are saying that, what drives them, what got them to this point. That's what I love sharing.
For sure. And I'm sure you've had the chance to write a lot of different pieces, but every artist, every author, every journalist sort of has that one thing that sticks out to them the most, that one interview, that one piece of writing. What is that for you?
Wow, narrowing down one story. There's a lot of stories. I'll share something from my goodbye column. I was at the Langley Times newspaper before joining LEC. Actually, 5 years ago this week, I started at LEC. So my last column was just reflecting back on my time. And my first week on the job, I wrote about an up-and-coming athlete who, wanted to make the Olympics one day, and he eventually did. A swimmer by the name of Jake Tapp. And then one of my last stories at the newspaper was about Danielle Laurie, who was making one more run at making the Olympic team, which she did in women's softball. So it's just kind of fitting that all those times, all those Olympic athletes, all these stories to share, like that just always stood out as, I saw a young athlete who had his dream set out, and I shared that story. And then I had my last story, another athlete who was going to, I can't remember if it was her second or her third game she's going to try to qualify for after, she had kids now and stuff like that. So it's about to come back. And she did make it back to the Olympics with Canada. So it's just kind of neat that I started with the Olympics and I ended with the Olympics.
Wow, that's some pretty impressive stuff. And I'm sure you've got a lot of stories like that. So I appreciate you sharing that one. I want to take you back here, Gary. 2016, the Vancouver Giants, they announced they're going to be playing at the Langley Events Centre. What does that mean to the Langley Events Centre? What did it mean to them at that time to hear that the Western Hockey League's Vancouver Giants would now be playing in their facility?
It just meant a lot because, sure, we had the LEC had hockey there before. Obviously, I was still at the paper, but the WHL Major Junior Hockey in Canada just sort of has that cachet. So to get a team to relocate from Vancouver was a big feather in their cap, just because there's so many young families out here. The arena is located perfectly just off of the highway and stuff like that. It just made sense for it not to happen, or it made sense for it to happen at some point, and it was just great that they landed a team of that magnitude.
Well, for sure. And that sort of leads me to my next question. I know you touched on it, but truly as a resident of Langley, and I know you live close by, if not there yourself, but what does it really mean for the residents of Langley to have that major junior team in their city?
These are the future stars of the game, and they're like 10 minutes away from home. There's a chance to watch these. Like, I remember as a fan watching the Giants at the Coliseum, Lucic, Gilbert Brule, Mark Fistrick, all those guys. So I remember, the excitement of going to watch that team back in their Memorial Cup days, under the legendary Don Hay and stuff like that. So it's just an opportunity to see, because there's been so many great players that have come out of the Giants program, out of every major junior program. And when there's a winner and the fans get behind it, like I look back to that 2019 team with Bowen Byram and Game 7, the WHL final, and just the excitement, like those memories. I'm a sports fan. I still remember games I went to as a kid. Like, those things stick with you. The sports are great for building community and atmosphere and excitement. And not everyone's fortunate enough to have that right in their backyard. So it's just a great opportunity for people to take advantage.
For sure. And you talked about it, the run to the WHL finals. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But for fans that have been to the LEC, or maybe fans that haven't been to the LEC, why is the Langley Events Centre such a great fit for the Vancouver Giants?
I just think there's so many families in the area. Langley it's growing incredibly. Like, you look at 200th Street and there's condos, townhouses everywhere, and just there's such a fan base to draw from. Like the schools, they're building new schools, they're building sports fields, we're attracting other teams. This is really becoming a destination for the Fraser Valley, because it's a pain to get to Vancouver when you live out in the Fraser Valley, right? So this is just perfect, because it's half hour 40 minutes from Vancouver, half hour 40 minutes from Chilliwack. So we're kind of located right in the heart of Metro Vancouver.
Yeah, for sure. The community is certainly a huge reason why, the Giants have been so successful out in Langley. But talk to me about the actual facility. I know you guys have done a lot of renovations to the building lately. I know there's a lot going on to make sure that it's up to the Giants' needs. Talk to me about the LEC itself.
Well, that would fall on our great operations department, and they're great for making sure, the ice is top notch, to making sure the rooms are ready to go and stuff like that. It's just, like I said before, it's a team effort where everyone just chips in to get what needs to get done, and we're happy to have the Giants and all the other major tenants that we have.
The Giants are happy to be there. A tough first year, though, for the Giants in Langley, their first season there. Not one they want to remember.
Lots of 6-5 games. I remember that. They could score, but unfortunately they couldn't keep the puck out of their net enough.
No, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. Obviously, you weren't with the LEC at that time, but I'm sure you had the chance to attend some of those games. Talk to me about the change in the atmosphere, the overall mood inside the arena, to go from that first season at the LEC to jump ahead into year number 2, where the Giants start to get rolling a little bit.
Yeah, the next year, you know what? They made the playoffs. They took the Victoria Royals to Game 7. I still remember I was covering for the paper. Game 6, overtime. Giants are dominating. They hit the post, doesn't go in. Victoria goes down the other end and wins it to force a Game 7. And then it's Game 7. You love to hear Game 7, but not when your team loses the Game 7. But it was just a big change in the team. They changed coaches. They had Jason McKee coaching the team, and he just did a really good job they had more defensive structure, because you're not going to win 7-5. So sure, it went from losing 6-5 to winning 5-4 and stuff like that. So this was the progress on the back end really paid dividends, and solid goaltending. It wasn't what the goaltending they got in 2019, but it is an improvement, and you saw that they were competitive in every game, and they made the playoffs, and that team was really fun to watch. And it would have been nice to see if they could have beat Victoria, to see what could have unfolded with the likes of Tyrone and Tyler Benson.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about the goaltending, Trent Miner, David Tendick, they were the goaltenders that year, but definitely took a huge jump in their career progression that following year when the team went all the way to the finals. And that game 7, that second year at the LEC, obviously not something that fans want to talk about. It stung for the Vancouver Giants. I talked to Dan O'Connor about it. He said everybody on that team believes that the Giants should have come through with that. They believe they were the better team in that series. Unfortunate, it couldn't go all the way there, but a guy you talked about, Tyroning, he's scored the history-making goal for the Vancouver Giants at the Langley Events Centre. So I'm sure that's something that is going to be remembered in that building for a long time.
He was just electric. Anytime he had the puck on his stick, you knew something was going to happen, and you paid attention when number 7 got the puck on his stick because he could make things happen. And he was just such an ultimate pro. Just talking to him post game and stuff like that. And what really stood out for him was his passion for the game, like the excitement, the smile on his face. He just loved being at the rink.
You know, you talk about passion, you talk about excitement. That's exactly what the LEC was all about that following year when the Giants went all the way to the finals. That was an electric atmosphere, Gary. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm sure something that means a lot to you guys, considering you guys are the ones behind that facility, the ones driving it there. Talk to me about that atmosphere. I get chills thinking about that run to the finals.
There's just something about that team. Like, I remember against the Spokane series, just they were down 2-0 and they just whipped off 4 goals and stuff like that. And it was such a deep team. Like,
yeah,
it was just so dominant physically. And they got in on the forecheck, force a turnover, score a big goal. Like, that team was so much fun to watch. That line was so much fun to watch. Like, it didn't have like a big 40-goal scorer on that line, but they just outworked the other team on the ice every time, force a turnover, and the puck would be in the back of the net. So the team has thrived off of that, and the building was just electric during that whole run. I do remember Game 7 again, or the series against Prince Albert, Game 3 when the Giants just got smoked. But aside from that, like Game 4, Game 5 are 2 of the best games I've ever witnessed, and that atmosphere has never been replicated in those 2 games to force it back to Prince Albert. It was just such a fun and magical time, and I'm just sad because we're all expecting a repeat of that in 2020 until COVID had other ideas.
Yeah, for sure. And, I couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, that Game 4 against Prince Albert, a tough one. Giants lost that one 1-0, but they were in it all the way and just couldn't get one goal, couldn't tie it up. Very tight game, but you talk about, how exciting that year was, and hopefully for the Vancouver Giants next year will be exciting as well. There's a lot of high praise for the team next year. What have you been hearing from Langley about what the Giants are going to look like next season?
Well, I think everyone's ready for a return to not really the glory days, but just a return to the winning ways. The past couple of years have been tough. It's been a young team, and that's the thing with junior hockey, where it's very cyclical. You're going to take your lumps in year 1, year 2, but by year 3, year 4, you're going to see the dividends of that, where okay, they're older now, they're a bit more mature, and they know what to expect, because 68 games is a grind, for 16, 17-year-olds. By the time they get to 18, 19, they're ready for it. So then it's just a matter of, the question with the decision makers is a very important question: which 3 overagers do you keep? Because those are very important positions, and that's going to determine how well the team does a lot of times.
And you also, take a look at other teams inside of the BC division, like the Kamloops Blazers. They have, I believe I counted it up, over 10 19-year-olds on their roster. They're built for this year, but next year they're going to take a huge step back.
Exactly. So then it's up to the teams like, Prince George, a very young team that had a good year this year and stuff like that. So Prince George, Vancouver, Kelowna, those teams had their down year, so now it's their turn to rise up. While Kamloops will, of course, they're going to reload. It's such a hockey factory, and Kamloops won't be down for long. So it's up to teams like the Giants to take advantage of the opportunity that sits in front of them in the 2023-24 season. and beyond.
I couldn't agree with you more there. And also, you take a look at the trades that the Giants general manager Barkley Pernetta has made, trading the captain the past 2 years to get players to build for that future, and that future starts next season. So it's going to be an exciting time for the Vancouver Giants, an exciting time for the Langley Events Centre. I want to ask you this, Gary. There's a bunch of sports teams that play at the LEC. Langley Thunder for lacrosse, Vancouver Bandits, the basketball team, TWU Spartans, Arena Lacrosse League, and the Vancouver Football Club for soccer all call their home the Langley Event Centre. Bunch of Vancouver names, though. You see the Langley Thunder, but then there's the Vancouver Bandits, Vancouver Giants, Vancouver Football Club. Does it bug people in Langley that it's Vancouver and not Langley in their name?
Not really. You see it so often, right? Like even in a football team, the BC Lions, they play out of Surrey, or they practice out of Surrey, they play in Vancouver. I think a name is just a name. It's just a way for not everyone knows about Langley. I think the Langley Event Centre has put the township of Langley on the map personally, but to me, it's just a name.
Well,
and
Langley,
it's a way to unite the whole community behind them.
Langley certainly turning into the place to be. I know a lot of people moving out to Langley. I know a lot of people that live out in Langley. How much of an impact does that have on the LEC?
Just for the amount of people that are in the area, it's just a central location for everyone, right? We've got club basketballs training there pretty much every night, every weekend. We've got tournaments and stuff like that. Like I said before, it's just the way we're located, just off of the highway. It's just easy to get for everyone. We're kind of sitting there right in the middle, and it's just great for the community, the actual Langley residents, to have that in their backyard. It's really helped put the township on the map.
I talked about the number of teams that play in Langley at the LEC. Keeping in mind, Gary, that this is a Giants podcast. I'm not going to make you say the Giants here, but what is your favorite sport other than hockey that gets played at the LEC?
I love all sports, but you know what? Basketball's always had a special place in my heart. One of my favorite times of year is the 3 weeks in late February, early March, when we host the BC School Sports Provincial Basketball Championship. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding and a lot of fun. Like, you get the parents, athletes, coaches that thank you afterwards for the hours we put in. But it's just enjoyable to put on a show like that and to pack the building. It all comes back to packing the building. The atmosphere in the LEC is electric once you get everyone loaded in, and so our goal is to replicate that for every home team we have.
No, never a dull moment indeed. And the lights inside that building, the sound inside that building, make sure it's an electrifying atmosphere. I want to talk more about the Vancouver Giants now. We talked a little bit about how bright the future is for the squad, but I want to talk about a guy like Justin Sordiff and a guy like Zach Ostapchuk, both players traded at the trade deadline the past 2 years. Ty Thorpe replacing Ostapchuk as the team's captain. He's aged out of the league. In your opinion, who's going to wear that C for the Giants next season?
Oh, I haven't really thought much hockey. Trying to remember back to who's coming. I guess a lot depends on which 20-year-olds you go. I think they will go with a more veteran captain, just because it's still a pretty young team, so a 19 or 20. So a lot of it depends on that. You know what? I'm drawing a blank. I'm not sure who my choice would be for captain until I see sort of what Barkley has planned. So I'm gonna take a mulligan on this one.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not an easy choice to make. You take a look at who they've got now and who will be back next year. It's tough to say, but I think Samuel Honzik, I think he wore an A this year for the Giants. I feel like he's got my vote for captain next season.
Yeah, and if they want to go the heart and soul rah, I'd say someone like Paul Mary.
Damien Palmieri, you could definitely fit that. I can definitely see that. Gary, I'm going to give you a bit of a challenge here. It's going to be a sales pitch for you. I know there's fans that used to cheer for the Vancouver Giants at the Pacific Coliseum that haven't been out to Langley yet. Why should they come out to Langley? Why is the Langley Events Centre just as good of a home as the Pacific Coliseum was to the Vancouver Giants?
The atmosphere is electric once you get the fans in there. Free parking. Everyone loves free, and just a great location. Plus, there's not a bad seat in the house. It's a nice. It's you're not playing in a 16,000 stadium with 8,000 people, right? When this place gets full, you get 4,500 in there. It's loud.
Certainly loud. And how closely do you guys work with the Giants organization throughout the season to help them with their events, help plan some theme nights for the club?
You know what? It's constantly going back and forth. They're always popping by our offices, bouncing ideas off of us, or telling us what they're working on. Then our great production team is coming through with, whether it be an intro video and things like that. So yeah, we're seeing them in our office on a daily basis.
And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's actually your team, the LEC team, that actually provides the Vancouver Giants with their introduction videos, right?
Yeah, that'd be my direct boss, Tyler Dinwiddie. He leads a production team, and then they come up with all the intro videos, all the headshots, and they're fantastic at what they do, and then they love what they do, and it shows.
The LEC, a brand new fit for the Vancouver Giants, place that they've called home for the last couple seasons, and the electricity inside that building, because it's not easy for that building, to not take too long to get packed up. It gets filled up pretty quickly in there, and there's always a lot of Vancouver Giants fans out there. The Teddy Bear Toss is one of those games last year that really, filled up quickly, and even the game against Connor Bedard as well, that was a fun game for the LEC. They also hosted the CHL Top Prospects game. So what were your thoughts on Connor Bedard?
Phenomenal player. Just wish he wasn't one of the Blackhawks. Wish he was staying local like most Canucks fans. But no, you know what? I think that was a generational player we were watching. You could tell the buzz in the building every time the puck hit his stick, and he didn't disappoint. I know he didn't score. I think he just finished with 1 assist, but it wasn't for lack of effort. Like he put on a show for the fans, and it was great seeing all the fans come out, even in the Vancouver Canucks jerseys with his names taped on the back. It just made for fun, right? Sports is coaches care about the wins and losses, fans care about the wins and losses, but at the end of the day, you want to be entertained, right? And Giants hockey is entertaining.
No, it certainly is. I asked you about the theme song for the Giants next year. I asked you a little bit about the videos. I want to find out though, are you guys going to bring any new food selections into the LEC next season? Any beverage choices?
That'd be a question for our food and beverage department, and I know they're trying out some new things with the soccer club with VFC. So I'm sure the stuff that's a hit there will eventually find its way over onto the main concourse, because you want to give lots of options for the paying fans.
You definitely do. Gary, my final question for you. If someone decides they want to cheer for a team in the Western Hockey League next season, what reason or reasons are you giving them for that team to be the Vancouver Giants?
It's a young and exciting team. This team showed glimpses of potential this year. Just weren't consistent enough. They're going to be hardworking. They're going to be prepared, and they're going to find a way to win. So that's why I'd hitch your wagon to the Vancouver Giants.
Well, it certainly is going to be a lot of fun. Gary, thanks so much for doing that. It means a lot to me, and let's wish the Giants the best of luck next season.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
That was Gary Ahuja from the Langley Events Centre, the manager of corporate communications and media for the LEC. Thank you so much for joining the two of us on this episode of Giants Coverage. Stay tuned for more.
The Giants Coverage Podcast. Coverage with heart.